Hi everyone, my name is Rudra Sekri and welcome to the Astropods. Today we have someone on the show who loves to share their passion for the night sky with his community through astrophotography and joined us on the podcast to inspire you to potentially get involved in astrophotography. This talented person from Canada believes that technology is available at our fingertips, and with enough time and dedication, even you can become an astrophotographer. However, due to pressing issues in astronomy such as light pollution, he is concerned that our view of the night sky will never be the same. It is my utmost pleasure and excitement to introduce Craig to the Astropods. Thank you so much for joining with us, Craig.
Thanks for the great introduction, Rudra. It was my pleasure to come on the podcast and share some of my views when it comes to astrophotography and the hobby in general.
Thank you so much, Craig. It's really fascinating to see that basically there's a lot of good things happening in astronomy that's making it more accessible to more and more people, but at the same time there are also competing effects that are, potentially going to, lock us in and not be able to see the night sky in its full glory. And that's just something that needs to be solved. In radio astronomy, we have a similar we've had a similar problem with phone calls interfering with what we're trying to see, and other 4G and 3G data affecting our results. But what we've tried to do over the years is create like a separate band of radio frequencies just for observing, and it's really made a lot of progress over the years. But now let's return from the future back to the present, and more specifically about your wonderful photos on Twitter and Instagram. By the way, follow him on Instagram and Twitter. I know you've been posting a lot of photos since 2009, and helping inspire people to do astrophotography as a hobby. What are some of the equipment and software you use to be able to generate these really cool photos of the night sky?
Yeah, I mean, the software and equipment is a tough one. I can speak to my equipment, but there is a vast array of equipment out there, and everyone kind of has a different experience with different equipment, and they set up things the way they want to, and there's no right or wrong way. It's if you learn your equipment and you use it to the best of its capabilities, you're likely going to do well. So personally, like I said, going back to where I had the sort of the 11-inch, it was a CPC Celestron 11-inch dual fork arm mount, and a really nice scope, but again, not an alt azimuth mount, which is not ideal for astrophotography. Equatorial mounts are typically better just due to the way they track the stars. So when I decided to make that leap, going from that mount to a new mount, I did a whole lot of research, and I settled on a software BISC as a company that makes the mounts in the US, and I got a Paramount MX. They had just came out sort of right around that time, and they were kind of the pinnacle of the technology at that time, and today that particular mount still works really well. So I haven't made any changes there. And in doing so, their software suite is very integral to that process. The software and the mount are almost married together. And that was something that I really liked, because I didn't want to sort of piecemeal my own thing together and sort of try and make it all work. It was nice. It was just one complete package, so to speak. In saying that, there's lots of other software involved, but I focused on trying to capture the best data possible, because at the end of the day, that's what counts. The rest of it comes afterwards and you tweak from there, but it's the data capture that really is important, because you can't sort of make something of nothing. So the software BISC is really the central component of my setup. The telescope you put on top of it actually doesn't matter as much as most people think. As long as you have something that's really good for taking pictures, it's a quality telescope. sort of not your department store special, more designed for quote unquote serious astronomers. And then you have the camera situation, which, a lot of people have DSLRs, which are your normal sort of point and shoot with the lens that they adapt to astrophotography, or you can get into dedicated astronomy cameras, which become more expensive and really are only good for that, which is what I've done, and that makes a big difference in just the whole process and how things turn out, and the ease of use, once you learn it, because it's not easy to learn, but once you learn how to do it all, it just becomes easier because it's designed for it. So you're not trying to make something do something that it wasn't designed for. So that's just kind of the hardware end of things. The software end is another story. Like I've recently just kind of started getting into more of the automation side, which requires a whole nother software suite that kind of integrates with the stuff I'm using, and it does more like scripted controlling. And well, if you think about it, there's a lot of telescopes out there that are completely remote locations that are run all on automation, and you can actually bring that to your backyard now. It's come that far. It's available to anyone. Years ago, that wasn't the case at all. When I was in the driveway with my -25 and taking that picture, there was not much automation going on. It was all me. But it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I've also had some experience with automation, especially in radio astronomy, because, I've had the opportunity to work with astronomers from various universities across Australia, and all those astronomers, instead of when they're not physically at the telescope, they always use remote connections, whether that's like VNC connections or even just automation. They have they have an AI system that like basically picks out certain objects that they want to observe each and every day, and the AI creates like a little schedule as to what it's going to observe and when and how long it's going to observe for. It's really fascinating to see that technology has come such a long way, and that's something which you did mention before, and that is that technology will continue to progress and make it easier for people to observe the night sky, especially with NASA. Now you've got NASA data online as well. They're posting all their data online in databases, and you can just go ahead and analyze them, which is really interesting. Just on the topic of telescopes, you were talking about that telescopes don't really matter. But what are the different types of telescopes that people can go for? I know some of our viewers might be beginners in astrophotography, and they probably might not know what are the different types of telescopes. So what different types of telescopes are there?
There's probably three main types of telescopes. Your typical refractor is, when people think of telescope, that's kind of what they think of, a long object with some glass at the end of it, and you look at the one end, and the light goes through the glass, and it's a typical telescope. The other type I talked about the 8-inch, the 11-inch that had was an SCT, and they're Schmidt Cassegrains. And what they are is they're a big mirror in the back. So light comes in, hits the mirror, kind of reflects back up to a smaller mirror in the front, and then it comes back down through the telescope, through the baffle tube and into your eye, or camera. So there's pros and cons to all of them. The other one is more of a Newtonian style, so it's a longer, larger tube. There's a mirror in it as well, but the eyepiece is actually up towards the top of it, or the front of it, I guess. So they're very popular as well. They're a faster focal ratio because that light travels less, so you kind of get a more zoomed out view of the sky with a bigger mirror. So your light collection is bigger, but your view is also bigger, because not a problem, but a characteristic of the SCT is, because that focal length is so long, you're zooming way in. So, just for different objects in the sky, like the Orion Nebula, for example, is a big object. So you generally, you might want to view it with something that has a big field of view. Problem with not again, I guess not problems, but the refractors, as you get bigger, the glass elements get pretty pricey. So, to get a refractor that's big like an SCT, the price difference is massive. Mirrors are typically cheaper to make and produce to get that bigger light gathering. So it's kind of, there's no one size fits all. And I think the important thing is for anyone that's getting in is, just to get a telescope and start looking through it and start using it. That's the only way you're really going to learn or see what the pros and cons are. And you can do some research first, obviously, but until you start using it, it's going to be tough to understand. And everyone's situation is different. And what I like to look at in the sky is different than what other people like to look at in the sky. So, it's kind of, you got to do your own thing a little bit.
And just on the topic of observing stuff in the sky, there are many astronomers recommend using binoculars instead of telescopes for beginners, especially for beginners who are willing to look at the sky and focus on certain objects, but don't have to deal with like telescopes. Would you also recommend that?
Yeah, I mean, I got a set of binoculars, a couple sets. I would definitely recommend the image stabilized binoculars. I think they're even way easier to use because I mean they're kind of expensive and there's not a lot of companies that make them. But what's nice about them is they help sort of take the shake out of your hands or whatever you're using to hold the binocular. So I really like looking at like the moon and Jupiter and stuff with my image stabilized Canons because you can see the moons around Jupiter with them. It's pretty cool. And it's simple. There's no mount to deal with. There's no, setup or takedown time really. And they're portable. You can have them in your vehicle with you. So, if you're in a light polluted spot, maybe, it's easy to get away from that light pollution, without not a lot of work or preparation.
Yeah, sounds really good. Thank you so much, Craig. Make sure to subscribe to the Astropods because we will be having more people just like Craig joining our podcast to share their expertise in their respective fields of astronomy. And have a great day.